Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond. My name is Cicada and I will be taking you through today's match. In celebration of hitting 6,000 subscribers, we are having two giveaways. The first to our patrons who have been there supporting us this whole time, and the second to our subscribers. Look for the end of the video for more on these giveaways. This week we're bringing you something different from our normal EDH games. The Demented Kirby from the Commander Tavern was nice enough to invite us to an 8-player Commander Cube afternoon session. It features Kirby himself, Mons from cEDH TV and his friend Pontus, Alex and Martin from Affinity for Commander, and Bal, Luis and myself from SplitSecond. It was stupid fun and this match features the decks we built. If you want to know more about this cube, we have left a link to Kirby's explanation on the description below. Be mindful that this cube has uncards, theros hero cards, banned EDH beauties and conspiracies in it, so this will get a bit bananas. This week I'm piloting the broken Moto, focused on heavy value and winning with the decks of others. Luis with Yarok after trying to draft Richard Garfield PhD, featuring fast mana and heavy value. Demented Kirby with Griselda Monster Masher partnered with the Broken Soul Advocate Eternal, featuring huge reanimation targets, and Bal with a classic Tymna and Tana combination focused on good stuff. I won the role and will be starting this match. My hand isn't super exciting, but that doesn't matter with Moto in the command zone. I have Thriving Grove, Swamp and Island to cover my colors. Sea Scryer and Greenweaver Druid both ramp me for bigger bombs, while Karozda Guildmage will often just be a card to discard for Moto. Malicious Affliction is pretty good to interact with the other players. Luis had the misfortune of being forced to mulligan down to 5 cards. He kept 3 lands, Island, Forest and Botanical Sanctum, missing out on black mana. He has Commander Sphere for ramp and draw and kept Familiar's Ruse to try and abuse ETB cards. Both Shadow Spear and Vraska Scheming Gorgon were sent to the bottom of his library. Kirby was also unlucky and forced to mulligan down to 6. His hand is kinda flooded, but beggars can be choosers and Sol can help fix that. He has Island, Vault of the Archangel and Vault of Champions. Spinning Wheel and Bog Witch both ramp him, while the Witch also helps him feed the graveyard for Griselda. Favorable Elder is just silly with Sol out. He sent a forest to the bottom of his library. Finally, Bal's hand is focused on top end. He has Thriving Bluff, Plains, and Core Haven for lands to cover most of his colors. Elvish Mystic can help him cast an early Tymna. Leathery Druid is a pretty disruptive card that changes each land at random, while both Decree of Justice and Worldfire are big mana spells, the latter pretty risky versus Moto. Let the crazy plays begin. Before starting the game, we had to set hero cards. Bal has the Philosopher, I have the Hunter, and Kirby drafted both the Warrior and the Avenger. Besides these, pre-shuffling I also have to show 2 additional cards. Arcane Savant, which will cast me Emergent Ultimatum on ETB, and Color of the Untamed, which can get me copies of Clocknapper for that sweet combo. The first turn cycle is basically just land dropping. I start with Thriving Grove because I did not realize Moto can target me for land or elves. I chose black as the additional color and passed. Luis dropped Botanical Sanctum, Kirby dropped Vault of Champions and Bal a Golgari Guildgate. Back to my turn, I play an island and ramp up by casting Sea Scryer and passing. Luis and Kirby both drop islands on their turns before passing as well. Bal plays Thriving Bluff and casts Elvish Mystic, confessing he was glad I didn't try to use Moto on him turn 1 because of it. What he also kept hidden was that he had a Birds of Paradise. I drop a Swamp for turn and pass. Moto is now able to provide fairly good value, so I'm down to sit back and just chill. Luis plays Blooming March and a Commander Sphere, all but announcing Yarok on the next turn. For his turn, Kirby is also ramping by playing Vault of the Archangel into a Spinning Wheel. It seems like we're moving towards more explosive turns. Bal plays the Plains and casts Tymna. He attacks Luis with his Elvish Mystic to try and draw a card, avoiding me due to the threat of an instant speed creature. He draws 1 from Tymna and moves to end step, so I tap everything and activate Moto for 4, discarding a Karozda Guildmage and choosing Luis. He gives me a banned card, Erayo. The table is pretty intimidated by Erayo's stacks potential, although she remains contained for now. On my turn, I play a Thriving Moor and choose green as its second color. I pass, once again waiting to see how everyone else moves. Luis plays a forest and casts his commander, Yarok. Let the Panner money conning begin. Next turn. Probably. He passes, daring Baal to attack him. Kirby starts his turn by casting Bog Witch. He gives it haste with the warrior and activates her, discarding an Ulamog's Crusher to cast Dark Deal and fill all our graveyards so that Griselda becomes that much carrier. Among the discarded cards, we can see that Luis dug deeper into that ban list by drafting Griselbrand. Pretty scary stuff. Kirby finds and plays a Reflecting Pool before letting Baal get to it. Baal goes ahead and attacks Kirby with Tymna on his turn, drawing 1. He casts Tana and the table actually groans when his land for turn hits the board, Caracas. Oof, not a fun one. He moves to end step and I activate Moto for 4 once more, sick rhymes. This time discarding Lanor Elves. I find an Archaeomancer from Luis, which brings Malicious Affliction back into my greedy hands. I start my turn with Thornwood Falls, sad that it enters tapped. I pass. Luis isn't that interested in offering Yarok as bounce fodder for Caracas, so instead of an ETB value engine, he uses his turn to play an island and cast Mindspring for, you guessed it guys, 4. He plays a Mox Jet and stops himself there just because Erayo is dangerously close to triggering. Luis passes. Kirby's turn starts with him playing Bountiful Promenade. He then casts his commander, Sol, which is a big value engine. He gives it haste with the warrior and attacks Luis just in case I get to find a flyer with Moto, all the while avoiding Caracas. On Luis's end step, Baal bounces Yarok, just to pressure the guy with Griselbrand in his graveyard and reduce his ability to pressure Baal into reacting to value plays. Baal puts Wooded Bastion on the battlefield. He casts Saskia, which allows him to attack me indirectly, considering how I can flash stuff up willy-nilly with Moto. He chooses me as the collateral damage. He bounces Sol with Caracas to get him more damage out this turn. Then, Baal attacks Kirby with Tana while Saskia and Tymna attack Brundown. Kirby blocks Tana with the Witch. In response, I activate Moto for 3, discarding Vati Ildal and targeting Luis the value engine. I find Ledenmere. Then, I cast Malicious Affliction on Tana so that Baal doesn't draw 1 and spawn Saproling tokens. The other damage goes through and it also hits me due to Saskia, while Baal draws 1 from Tymna. Not bad at all. On my turn, I'm ready to get some big plays going. I put a swamp onto the battlefield and cast Arcane Savant, which gives me Emergent Ultimatum. Both are cast, so they both count for Erayo. I choose Necromantic Selection, Rescue from the Underworld, and Blood for Bones as my targets, since I want to abuse Arcane Savant again. Because Blood for Bones gives me so much immediate value, Luis sends it back into my library. The other 2 spells are cast and Erayo flips, turning into a pretty toxic card on itself. I sacrifice Archaeomancer with Rescue from the Underworld so I get it back the next turn, and choose to reanimate Dark Imposter with it on my next upkeep. Then, Necromantic Selection destroys the board and reanimates Arcane Savant to give me a second Emergent Ultimatum on the same turn. Because I cleared the board, I get Liliana Vess plus Vivian Arcbow Ranger as value engines, and Sylvan Primordial since it's just a stupid card overall. Kirby chooses to get rid of the Primordial after checking that the Caracas isn't going to be used against him. Vivian makes my Arcane Savant larger, and then I use Liliana to tutor my library for a channel. Very much ahead, I pass the turn. Luis starts his own by pitching a Liliana Waker of the Dead to Eraya's counter magic effect. He follows that with a swamp and an Animate Dead aimed straight at Griselbrand, looking to find a way out of this mess and hopefully on top. We watch as Luis loses 7 to draw 7. He casts Mox Sapphire, all but confessing his deck was mostly banned cards, and then loses another 7. He casts Serendip Sorcerer with his last mana and stops at that, moving to cleanup. Kirby unfortunately is in a bad spot. Erayo stops him from being able to go for my walkers, so he plays a basic mountain and passes, banking instead on that spinning wheel. I do ask if he doesn't want to cast a spell just for the fun of watching it get countered. Baal is also not in the best spot. He uses Caracas to get rid of Griselbrand before I'm given the chance to intervene or even use Dark Imposter to gain Griselbrand's abilities himself. Luis responds by gasping first and paying 7 to draw 7 second. BaB then reveals that he also wanted to play an Orzhov Basilica, which bounces Caracas away from a Sylvan Primordial from me. Nice save. On my turn, Rescue from the Underworld brings back Archaeomancer and Dark Impostor, triggering the first and giving me Necromantic Selection once again. I draw the channel. Then I use Liliana to bring Johnny Combo Player to the top of my library and move to combat, intent on attacking Luis. Kirby taps my Arcane Savant, stopping me from pressuring the only menace to my board. Come the second main, I cast Channel. I start by paying 3 life and discarding Underdark Beholder to Moto, targeting myself. The table is disgusted when I reveal Johnny. I pay 4 life for more mana and get myself Villainous Wealth into my hand, while declaring that even if I die, I will die happy. I pay 20 life and cast Villainous Wealth on BaB for a whopping 20 cards, while I look for a way to win. I choose the spells I want to cast, their targets, and start resolving them. First up, I get a Talisman of Conviction. I follow that by resolving Anafenza the Foremost, Magetta the Lion, and Realm Cloaked Giant. Terminate is aimed at Luis's only creature, which is exiled by Anafenza. I am now trying to think of ways to send Luis back as far as possible. Generous Gift, Rex's Gloomy March, Sun Titan, Fiend Hunter, and Oblivion Ring all enter the battlefield. I order the triggers so that Sun Titan resolves first, returning a forest, then Fiend Hunter exiles Arcane Savant, and lastly Oblivion Ring exiles Fiend Hunter so that Arcane Savant re-enters play, triggering for another Emergent Ultimatum. I choose Kirby while going for Stolen Identity, Sylvan Primordial, and Blood for Bones. Kirby tells me I'm never getting Blood for Bones. My sadness enters the stack. Primordial triggers targeting Luis's Moxjet, the Warrior, and the Philosopher. In response, BaB activates the Philosopher to tap my Sun Titan. They get destroyed and I look for 3 tap basic forests. Fair card, guys. Stolen Identity gives me another Arcane Savant because it's been working great so far. I cipher it onto Realm Cloaked Giant. Arcane Savant resolves and I get Vivian Nature's Avenger, Liliana Death Wielder, and Blood for Bones, the latter going back into my library by Kirby's Imperial Demand. At this point, between Arayo and me killing Luis's mana sources a bit, the table concludes that they have no way to stop me from winning, so they choose to concede. Luis had hoped to reach in Garruk's wake but could no longer get there, and so the game ends with this ridiculous turn. Thank you for joining us for today's matches, everyone. Kirby's Commander Cube was super fun to play with, and this game showed us why some cards should remain banned. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Ajimo, Iglegal, Heated Shield, Drunken Housecat, and LL Coolrat, our stack breakers. As we've announced at the beginning of this video, we have 2 giveaways running. If you're a patron by the 1st of November, you'll be eligible to win Magic Fest Sol Ring, MechaGodzilla Hangarback Walker, Buy a Box Chord of Calling, and Bring a Friend Edition Reliquary Tower. As for our non-patron subscribers, all you need to do is comment on this or upcoming videos with hashtag giveaway and your favorite moment from any of our videos to be eligible to win. Foiled Japanese Crystalline Giant, Buy a Box Wrath of God, MechaGodzilla Hangarback Walker, and the Bring a Friend Edition Reliquary Tower. All of these cards were graciously sponsored by our LGS Arena Porto, which has been adamant in their support to our channel. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Come with us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.